Imagine two people. One spends 4 hours every Sunday screaming at a screen over a game they can't influence. The other spends those same 4 hours learning a skill, building a side hustle, reading, investing, or simply thinking. Fast forward 10 years. Who do you think is more likely to have financial freedom? Now, this isn't about hating sports. Sports are entertaining. They're inspiring. They teach discipline, teamwork, and resilience. But here's the uncomfortable question. Why do some people never become emotionally attached to sports in the first place? Why can they watch a championship game, shrug their shoulders, and move on with life, while millions experience genuine emotional highs and crushing lows over people they've never met? The answer isn't what you think. It has very little to do with sports, and everything to do with psychology. Because the people who don't obsess over sports often share a completely different mental operating system, one that changes how they spend their time, attention, and ultimately, their money. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why protecting your attention may be one of the greatest financial advantages you can ever have. But first, here's the surprising psychological principle that explains almost everything. Humans desperately want to belong. That's why sports fandom is so powerful. When someone says, "We won," they're talking about a team they don't actually play for. Psychologists call this *** social identity asterisk. Your brain begins treating another group's success as your own. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But people who don't obsess over sports often build identity differently. Instead of attaching their self-worth to external victories, they attach it to personal progress. Their confidence comes from learning, building, improving, investing, creating. Notice the difference? One identity depends on events outside your control. The other grows from actions you control every single day. And here's the financial twist. People who define themselves by what they build are naturally more patient with long-term goals. That's exactly how wealth is created. Quick question. If your favorite team lost every game for 5 years, would anything in your actual life improve or decline? Interesting thought, isn't it? Because the next psychological trait goes even deeper. Attention is today's most valuable currency. Everyone wants it. Streaming platforms, social media, advertisers, sports leagues. Your attention literally generates billions of dollars. Here's the irony. Most people protect their wallets, but leave their attention completely unguarded. People who don't obsess over sports often see attention differently. Every hour is an investment. Every distraction has an opportunity cost. Watching one game isn't the problem. Watching hundreds every year without realizing what you're giving up. That's where things become expensive. Imagine investing 500 hours annually into mastering sales, coding, AI, investing, or communication. Now compare that with memorizing player statistics. One skill compounds. The other mostly entertains. And don't misunderstand. Entertainment has value, but unconscious consumption has a price. Speaking of prices, the next psychological pattern quietly drains far more money than most people realize. Have you noticed what surrounds sports? Merchandise, subscriptions, premium channels, fantasy leagues. Sports betting, travel, expensive tickets, limited edition collectibles. Your emotions are constantly being monetized. Excitement makes spending feel rational. Loyalty makes overpriced purchases feel justified. Victory makes celebrations expensive. Defeat encourages comfort spending. It's almost brilliant. People who stay emotionally detached from sports aren't immune to marketing. They're simply less emotionally vulnerable to this specific system. And emotional distance often leads to better financial decisions. Here's a funny thought. Imagine explaining to your future millionaire self why you bought a $250 jersey because someone else scored a touchdown. Sounds slightly ridiculous when you say it out loud, doesn't it? But here's the twist. This next trait has almost nothing to do with money, yet it influences everything. There's an old saying, don't admire the lifestyle, build it. People who don't obsess over sports often crave participation more than observation. Instead of watching excellence, they pursue excellence. They'd rather learn a language, lift weights, start a business, read, travel, create videos, practice public speaking, or master investing. They're chasing growth instead of consuming someone else's achievement. That doesn't mean they never relax. It means their default setting points toward creation, because creating changes your life. Watching usually changes your mood, big difference. And this leads directly into the final and perhaps most powerful psychological principle. Modern culture rewards instant excitement. Big games, breaking news, last-minute victories. Everything feels urgent, but wealth doesn't grow that way. Careers don't grow that way. Relationships don't grow that way. Health doesn't grow that way. People who avoid becoming emotionally consumed by sports often develop an unusual ability, delayed gratification. They become comfortable with slow progress, quiet improvement, invisible wins. They understand something most people forget. The biggest victories rarely happen under stadium lights. They happen on ordinary Tuesday mornings when nobody is watching, reading another chapter, making another investment, learning another skill, saving another dollar, repeating tiny actions that eventually produce extraordinary outcomes, and that mindset changes everything. But before you decide sports are simply bad, there's one important distinction. Here's the truth: sports aren't the enemy, obsession is. If watching your favorite team helps you connect with family, build friendships, relax after work, celebrate unforgettable moments, that's valuable. Life isn't meant to be optimized every second, but if entertainment quietly becomes your identity, consumes your attention, controls your emotions, and replaces building your own future, that's when the psychology starts working against you. The wealthiest mindset isn't about eliminating enjoyment. It's about making sure your entertainment never costs you the life you're trying to build, because one day, you'll either look back on years spent watching other people achieve greatness, or years spent becoming someone you're genuinely proud of. The choice begins with something as simple as deciding where your attention goes today. If this video changed the way you think, then don't stop here.